does it not make sense for us to engage in a trade agreement with a country that can produce one particular product really well that we can't produce well? Does it not make more sense?
I think, that's
the essence of like what free trade is all about.
100% correct.
That's
the problem is, why do we have a trade deficit with the European Union? What the do they produce, Hutch? Like, let's be real. They do not have
Europe
natural
produce?
resources. Like,
what are the largest exports from the EU? Industrial equipment, pharmaceutical products, motor vehicles, chemical products, computer and electronic equipment, machinery, including computers, vehicles, pharmaceuticals, plastics, optical, technical, medical apparatus, iron, steel, organic chemicals, aircraft, spacecraft. Yeah, that seems like a lot of exports.
Yeah, I had a couple of drinks at lunch today. I wasn't gonna hop on here, but you know, chat is wanting me to, so you know, I might as well.
You day drinking?
On a Friday?
Hey, listen, I'm not judging. Your mic situation is a little sketchy.
I had to. Maybe it's because I had Twitch open on my phone. I'm talking on my phone, so
that's better. Does it bother you that Elon and Trump are just blatantly lying about the astronaut thing?
I don't know too much about that situation if they are lying, because I just saw some stuff the other day that made it sound like they weren't really lying. A counter question of that would be like,
by you people anymore.
Does it bother you at all that the Democratic Party lies all the time, especially calling Trump a fascist? Like, how can Trump be a fascist but at the same time work for Putin? Is
that a serious question?
I mean, it kind of is. So, right? I mean, if you look at the political spectrum, what are you going to say? Like, a fascist is far left now?
You think Putin is far left?
Do you think Putin is far left, or do you think he's far right? What do you think he is?
Putin is I would feel completely comfortable calling him like a quasi-fascist. Yeah. He set up like a cult of. No. He set up.
Very interesting.
Well, no, we can go down the list of like criteria when we're talking about fascism.
Yeah, we can.
So he places a heavy emphasis on like totalitarian style, like military dominance within his own country, brutal repression of dissidents.
What separates that from communism?
Of cult of personality. A communism would be more to do with like having like state controls over the economy.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like in the pursuit of an egalitarian structure where like privileges and responsibilities are more or less evenly distributed. With fascism, there's a degree of state control over the economy, but it's just crony capitalism. It's just they just enrich their oligarch friends and entrench their own power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I want to get back to the astronaut thing. Like, does it not?
Yeah. Like I said on that astronaut thing, you know, I just saw some things the other day that kind of just like is like the opposite of what you're saying. So it kind of seems like one of those situations where who really knows the truth, you know?
Well, you can.
Are you going to say that Biden? Are you going to say that Biden 100% knows the truth, or what? Because I just saw some stuff the other day that said that the astronaut confirmed that they were stranded up there by the Biden admin.
No, that's not what they said. I played.
Let me.
Hold on.
I have to search some shit, but yeah.
I know exactly the video that you're talking about. The astronaut. Yeah. Let's pull up that. Hold on. Astronaut comments. Elon. Well, first let me show you. We watched it on the stream yesterday. It was a video of these astronauts from last year.
I'm not watching your Twitch, by the way. I'm trying to look this up myself because I had to close your Twitch to talk. So,
that legacy.
Okay. Well, I don't know what to tell you here. I can give you a here. I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah,
if you want to save that link,
you can give me. I trust you to give me a rundown. I don't think you'll lie to me right now.
Well, the headline here is NASA rescue mission live. NASA's quote stranded astronauts say they don't feel abandoned or stuck. And I would just encourage you to look up, like, filter it to December of 2024 in your Google search, and you'll see that Biden authorized SpaceX to bring these astronauts home when the next crew came to replace them at the scheduled time in February. And the vehicle, the SpaceX vehicle that is going to bring these astronauts home has been parked at the ISS, has been docked there since September. So it's not a question about like, can we bring them home? The question was a question of efficiency. So they decided to stay up there because to launch a special mission just to bring these 2 astronauts home, number one, comes with risk. Number two, comes with cost, like minimum $200 million cost. And then the other reason was if they left, it would have left just one United States astronaut on that mission. And the workload would have been really burdensome. And so they've been on the record many, many times saying like, we are not stranded. We're fine. Don't worry about us. We knew the risks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact that Elon, the fact that Biden approved SpaceX to pick them up back in September, and Elon is telling the media that Biden told SpaceX no, is that not like an enormous red flag for you? Like, what? That's an incredible thing to lie about.
Well. The thing is, I mean, with Biden when he was in office, I mean, you don't really know what Biden didn't even know what he was doing in office. So it's like Biden might not even been the one that approved that. You know, I heard some of the biggest signings were done while Biden had his afternoon nap. You know, so
that is a damning.
I like I said, I don't really know too much about the whole SpaceX situation and stuff like that. Not really too worried about that because in the grand scheme of things, that's not why we voted for Trump. Like we're getting astronauts back from the ISS was not like the reason why we voted for Trump, right?
But the
reason why we voted for Trump was for the reasons that he's doing right now. Like that State of the Union address the other day. For one, the border just got closed like that, right? So what is it, a 95% drop in immigration since he started?
If you accept his numbers, but I'm not familiar with his like where he got those numbers.
Oh, I mean, if we're going to accept Biden's numbers, we have to accept Trump's numbers too, right? Like,
well, we know that the amount of border encounters had been on the declines for the last like 8 months. So that they had already been going down. So I'll grant you immigration. Here, listen, I'll grant you immigration because that's something that you guys wanted him to be tough on, and I think we can all agree that he's been tough on that. And so that policy is not even particularly unpopular. But why don't we shift towards the economy? Like, do you feel good about the economy right now?
I think the economy, you know, I'm a realist with this stuff. So I from the get go, I understand that tariffs can have effects where they do increase the price of goods. But the problem is, Hutch. So the problem is when we have an economy where we just import everything. Like, yeah, it might be cheaper, but here's the thing. You know, if we were to ever get into war with China, do you know how many American citizens would die just from like common bacterial infections?
How are we jumping from the economy to war with China? Because
do you want to understand how that plays in together?
Sure, enlighten me.
So if you're saying, oh, we're going to produce this stuff in other countries and we're going to ship it over here because manufacturing it in other companies in other countries is cheaper. That's what we do with our medicine currently, right? That's what we do with our pharmaceutical industry. China produces what, like 70-80% of our medicine?
Let me fact check you here. Hold on. What percentage of American pharmaceuticals? Do you spell pharmaceuticals? Nobody knows.
CEUTICALS, I believe.
18.6% of our drugs are imported.
Only 18.6%.
Yes, China and India accounted for 57% total of pharmaceutical imports.
57% of the 18%. Okay. That's still a pretty large number either way. It's not 70%. I believe that the true number is higher.
The amount of imports.
What's up?
The amount of imports that we're bringing in from China for pharmaceuticals has increased a lot in the last few years. Just to substantiate your claim here.
So you know, there's a lot of things like that, right? So like the thing is, when you're reliant on other countries to get your stuff, that means you're at the will of other countries, correct? Like if Canada were for some reason to jack up oil prices, you're at the mercy of other countries, right?
This seems like a justification to not engage in any kind of trade with foreign countries.
Well, it seems like a justification to have reciprocal trade laws, right? So you have things in Canada, like you have certain prices, like what is it, milk? There's certain milk brands in Canada that have over 250% tariffs on the United States
on dairy products.
How
every country does every country does targeted tariffs. Like every country does that.
And that's why, and I think that's the entire premise of voting for Donald Trump was to match that stuff, right? So
I thought it was to bring the prices down. I talked to so many Trump people during the 2024 election cycle, and every single one of them talked about the inflation that occurred under Biden and how Donald Trump, if he won, he was going to come in and stretch people's buying power. He was gonna either bring down prices or raise wages enough that you wouldn't feel that effect of that inflation anymore. That's not what's happening in this first month.
Well, because the problem is this first month, for one, this is, as you guys would like to say, this is Biden's economy still.
You think Biden is the reason why the stock market is tanking right now?
So why it's tanking? For one, I'm not going to say it's tanking because it's not. I checked my 401k. It's not tanking. There is a decline, yes, but I mean, if you're going to say
it's pretty bad.
I mean, it's not great. Like, what is it? All the gains since his election, since he's announced his election has been lost.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, from that perspective, it's not great. But the thing is, it's not just his presidency isn't just 1 month long. So you have to give time to let this stuff play out, right? And people talk about the price of eggs. What's up?
I'm just saying the stock market started going down as soon as he really started getting serious about these tariffs. When he announced the tariff stuff.
Well, yeah, because it has investors worried. That's all that it is. A stock market going down for a month necessarily doesn't matter.
Why do you?
Because it'll eventually go up.
Why do you think investors are worried?
They're worried because the problem is, like, they don't know how that is going to affect the trade of their companies.
Right.
So
that doesn't seem great for the economy. You're saying this is.
It depends on what you define as the economy. If you're looking at everything short term, day to day, then necessarily no. But if you're gonna look big picture, 5-10 years from now, like what's the plan, right? So do you want the economy structured around 3 to 6 month wins or 5 to 10 year wins?
And your position is that like heavy tariffs are going to result in a domestic manufacturing boon, and we're going to like the long term gains are going to surpass the short-term losses that we're experiencing right now. What are you basing that off of?
There's multiple things that can happen here, right? So there's one that could play out, which I think Democrats would like, where everybody drops tariffs and now there's free trade across the world. I don't think you'd have an issue with that.
No,
right?
I wouldn't.
Or there's something which this is a theory that I have. I don't know how true it is, but you start dropping income taxes and replacing that with the consumption tax and tariffs. And now people have more say so over how they're taxed, right?
Okay. Why do you think the Atlanta Fed is projecting a recession?
Well, why do I think that?
Yeah.
Because government spending is accounted for in GDP.
You think they're projecting a recession purely because of the Doge cuts? You don't think that it's because businesses right now are scrambling, trying to figure out how they're going to adjust to these new tariffs? Companies all over the country are having meetings.
It's very hard to tell because you have that side of it, but then you also have all these new investments coming in, right? Like what did Apple announce? $500 billion investment in the U.S. over 10 years.
I'm pretty sure that deal had been negotiated, had been in the works for like a couple years now. Trump likes to do that, like take credit for shit that had already been negotiated during the previous term.
It sounds like the Democrats got to get better at taking credit for what they do then, right?
I don't even necessarily disagree with you there, but on the topic of like the economy, Donald Trump told everyone that he was going to fix this shit day one. He said day one, I am going to cut your, he said, I'm going to cut your energy bill in half. I'm going to bring down the price of groceries. I'm going to bring down the price of those eggs. Day one, Biden can do it, but he's choosing not to. And now in the press conference today, he said there's going to be some short-term discomfort. What do you think he means by discomfort? And how does that line up with what he promised on the campaign?
So let me address that. So anybody who believes that the president can bring down prices on day one is probably stupid, right? Like I'll just say that right now. There's nothing any president can do to make a market change that drastically in one day unless he's announcing a war or something, right? I will say,
if I go through your Twitter feed, am I going to find you blaming Biden for inflation? Like, am I gonna find you saying that he could bring prices down, but are choosing not to? I'm just curious.
I don't think I've ever said he can choose to bring prices down. I will. There's a lot of talks about me saying, yeah, Biden was responsible for the worst inflation since Jimmy Carter, which is a fact, right?
What's a fact? The worst inflation since Jimmy Carter, or the fact that it was Biden's fault?
Well, the fact was the president's worst inflation since Jimmy Carter, so that blame falls on him for the most part, right? When you talk about a president's term, you're not like, oh, well, technically it's this. It's like, no, you had 22% inflation over 4 years with Biden. You have 40% under Jimmy Carter.
What do you think?
Two Democratic presidents had the worst inflation in U.S. history.
What do you think caused the inflation this time around?
Well, here's where you go and tie everything in with that globalist economy agenda, right? So it's like, when the European market does not do well, it makes the American market not do well. So
but I'm saying, like, what do you?
Tariffs could also benefit with as well. We all know what happened. We all know 2020 happened, right? COVID.
Right. Okay. So what do you think caused the inflation?
What do I think caused inflation?
Yeah.
A lot of things caused the inflation, right? Like you have what was it? Over $400 billion in new money printed off under Biden admin. That definitely helped with inflation, right?
You're aware that Donald Trump injected money into the economy when he was the bulk of the stimulus, I believe, came when Donald Trump was president.
What was Donald Trump's inflation when he did that? What was his inflation numbers when he did that? I just want to know.
You're crediting.
Let's look it up.
Hold on. I just want to be clear. You want to credit Donald Trump for low inflation during the pandemic?
I'm just saying, if we're talking purely off inflation numbers, right? That's what we're gonna do.
Do you think maybe we had low inflation because people were purchasing less goods and services during a pandemic and they were spending more time at home?
That can be a thing too.
Which one do you think is more plausible?
I'm not saying that it's not that's not the reason why. I'm just saying there's a simple fact. Biden had 22% inflation over his term. Like that is a fact that you can
COVID happened on,
if you want to, but
it's a fact that COVID happened on Trump's watch. Can I blame Trump for COVID?
Well, I mean, you guys already do. You guys, for one, you guys blamed them for calling it the Chinese virus. And if you wanted to block flights to China, then you guys called them racist. Then you guys found out that COVID did come from China.
You're saying like,
oh, you should have done something about that.
You're saying like the median liberal blamed Donald Trump for the pandemic?
I would say that the median liberal definitely did. I mean, if you look at this news cycle, this election cycle, I mean, that's kind of what it was, right?
Okay, so if we fast forward like a year and Donald Trump's gamble on tariffs did not pay off, and let's say the economy is not doing great in a year because these tariffs just massively disrupt global trade and it results in job losses, stock losses, and deflation. Are you in a year going to say that this was a failed policy, or are you going to be in my chat saying, well, we got to give it more time?
I would definitely be on the edge of saying it's a failed policy. So the whole time I've been saying Donald Trump has to be careful about going pedal to the metal with everything he wants to do, because the problem is, I understand he has a lot he wants to get done. He wants to provide a framework for the future, right? And that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to get all that stuff set in place. But the problem is the country's not ready for everything all at one time. So if he does all that stuff, it will end up looking bad on him, and then the MAGA movement's gonna end up dying out, and then the Democrats will win in 2028. He needs to not go pedal to the metal the entire way and chill out on some of these things. Personally, I believe.
So you don't necessarily agree with his economic policies right now. It sounds like.
So with Donald Trump, I definitely agree that we need tariffs. But a blanket tariff, I don't necessarily agree with. I don't.
Why
I
not?
don't think we're.
Why not?
Because a blanket tariff, we all know what if you know about economics, you know a blanket tariff is not just going to be great, right?
Okay, so so it sounds like you're saying he's doing bad economic policy.
I'm not going to say he's doing bad economic policy. I'm going to say I'm saying he's being very aggressive in his economic policy.
You just said
maybe it might be too aggressive.
You just said blanket tariffs are bad.
I said blanket tariffs aren't a great thing. I will say tariffs in general we needed to protect American businesses somehow, some way, right? Like,
how is he protecting American businesses by essentially levying a 25% tax on them?
How is he protecting them by?
Yeah, like if you're an American, if you're like a contractor, right, that works for like real estate developers, and your job is to build homes, right? And then you got to purchase the supplies to buy these homes. Now all of a sudden you're spending 25% more on like lumber. How is that protecting American companies?
Well, it depends on where you get your lumber from, too, right? It'll be good for the American lumber industries, because I'm pretty sure a lot of the lumber that we're getting from Canada, we do not need to be buying from Canada. Would you agree with that?
80%.
Like, would you agree that we could?
80%.
Would you agree that we can produce a lot of our own lumber?
Why do you think we import products?
I think a lot of why we import products is to keep good relations around the world.
And
I believe the main reason is that, because the thing is, we have a trade deficit with the European Union.
I have a trade deficit with like Sprouts. Does that mean I shouldn't shop at Sprouts, or I should boycott them? Sprouts is making way more money than I am.
If you had a Sprouts factory in your backyard, and you chose to import Sprouts from another country, yeah, you're dumb for that.
No, I mean the grocery. I mean the grocery store. I mean the grocery store. Like, but what do you think another reason is why we import goods besides like good relations?
There are some goods that we cannot produce on our own. You will be correct if you say that statement.
Come on.
I will say
you're so close. Why do we like to import products? What would be a really good reason for us to import a product?
For one, they could potentially be cheaper.
Yes.
But
there you go.
But the problem with that is, Hutch, the problem with that is to argue that you want to import products, say, from China to make them cheaper. That means that you are directly saying that you don't care about slave labor. You just want the cheapest product regardless, right?
I think you can support global free trade and also be principally opposed to slave labor.
But how, if you're importing stuff that literally came from slaves?
You'd have to be more specific as to what you're talking about here. But I mean, if you want to point to China and say that they have unfair labor practices, would you? You sound like you're not a socialist, right? You're not a communist.
Of course.
Okay, so you agree that like capitalism and free trade has benefited the human species, right?
Free trade, it can't potentially not.
No, not potentially.
What you mean by benefits?
Not potentially. We've lifted literally 80 to 90% of the entire global population out of extreme poverty in the last 100 years. Why do you think that happened?
Because money is not backed by anything. That's not a thing.
Can you think of another reason why?
Because that's the biggest argument right there, is money's not backed by anything. And they print out.
Can you think of another reason why so many people were lifted out of poverty in the last 100 years?
You might as well just have to tell me, man.
Do you think maybe it has to do with trade agreements? that benefit both, like that benefit all parties. Like you can, like it's a mutual. So like if you have one country,
I don't agree.
Let me break it down in like really simple terms, right? Like let's say you have one country that in their region or their hemisphere or whatever, they can produce a shitload of coffee or bananas or something like that.
Yep.
And where in America, maybe we can produce more of like something else. I don't know. I'm blanking on whatever. Does it not make sense for us to engage in a trade agreement with a country that can produce one particular product really well that we can't produce well? Does it not make more sense?
I think, no.
That's the essence of like what free trade is all about.
100% correct.
Right.
No, in those cases, I 100% agree. But the problem is, why do we have a trade deficit with the European Union? What the do they produce, Hutch? Like, let's be real. They do not have
Europe
natural
produce?
resources like that.
I don't know. Hold on. What are the largest exports?
What do we mainly get from them?
What are the largest exports from the EU? Industrial equipment, pharmaceutical products, motor vehicles, chemical products, computer and electronic equipment, machinery, including computers, vehicles, pharmaceuticals, plastics, optical, technical, medical apparatus, iron, steel, organic chemicals, aircraft, spacecraft. Yeah, that seems like a lot of exports.
So all that shit that they need, all those raw materials that they need to build that stuff does not come from Europe, right? We could literally build all that. We could do whatever the European Union is doing ourselves.
If it's cheaper to get it from if it's cheaper to get it from Europe, why wouldn't we do that?
If it's cheaper to get it from Europe, why wouldn't we do that? Who's even say it's cheaper to do it in Europe?
What do you think the basis of free trade is? Like we just agreed a moment ago that the reason why we import products is because it's cheaper.
Do you think that Europe somehow has better engineers than the United States? I would 100% disagree with that statement if you were to make that. So anything that has to do with engineering, when they don't even have their own natural resources, we can engineer that shit better here. We can produce it better here.
What?
We've proven that. I mean, that's what we do. That's what the military industrial complex is in the United States. We produce the best fucking military equipment. We produce the best equipment everywhere. No, we're not even jumping all over the place. It's one of those things where it's all
military industrial complex. Petroleum and natural gas comes from Europe. Coal, uranium. I'm looking at various resources, minerals. Iron ores, ferro alloy metals, non-ferrous base metals, precious metals, non-metallic deposits, water resources, biological resources, power, heavy industry, chemical industries, light industries, handcrafts. I mean, seems like a lot comes out of Europe. Kind of a big landmass. So you would expect there to be a lot of.
So if you're gonna say they make these products, yes, I'm not gonna say that they don't make products. What I'm trying to say is, in order to make those products, they have to import a whole bunch of shit from other countries, anyways, just to make those products. Because
you've just described that's global trade. They do that because it's cheaper.
That's the thing. We could do that stuff ourselves, is what I'm trying to say.
But you're not making a positive argument. You're not making a positive argument about like why it's preferred to domestically manufacture everything. I can tell you the reason I like imports and free trade is because I pay lower prices for better goods. Just more efficient.
Better goods?
Yes.
Better goods. That's
who do you think does coffee? Who do you think grows? Hold on, wait. Who do you think does coffee better? Who do you think it does coffee better? Cuba or the United States?
Specific things like, if you're going to argue specific things like a cigar or coffee, yeah. But if you're going to talk about engineering products, if you're going to talk about engineering products, like no.
If it's cheaper for us to import like precious metals or lumber, why is that bad? Why would it be better for us to spend more to produce more here? What benefit do I get from that?
That's the thing. It's not even necessarily more expensive to produce it here. The problem is a lot of those costs are artificially made, right? So you have things like the energy, for example, right? So energy in the United States, Joe Biden limited our energy production. Yes, it could have. You might say, oh, there was actually an increase in energy production under Joe Biden.
I would say
in
that.
Certain fields.
That's exactly what I would say.
And that might be true. But also, guess what Joe Biden did before? But guess what Joe Biden does before he leaves office?
What did he do?
Guess what he does before he leaves office?
What did he do?
bans 650 million acres of offshore drilling for the United States.
Who do you think
he limited energy? Why aren't we doing nuclear energy, Hutch?
Who do you think produced more oil domestically, Donald Trump or Joe Biden?
Oh, for sure, it's Joe Biden. I've seen the numbers.
You just told me he limited energy.
I guess because he physically did. Like, he literally passed laws to do that. And I mean, you can't argue and say that he didn't do that when he physically did.
So he produced more oil than any president in history. And
Trump took away a lot of those regulations that Biden was able to take advantage of. And then Joe Biden, at the end of his presidency, put some of those regulations back in. Like, that's kind of like what's happening right here. So it's like, I mean, we have to be honest about what's happening, right? Like,
if we, because of a trade agreement with Canada, if we import crude oil from Canada and then send that down to refineries in Texas, and then that's more profitable for us as a country and for these oil companies, right? And it helps keep the costs of oil lower than they would be if we hadn't imported them. Why is that a bad thing?
Why do you think that is? So Hutch, here's the thing I want to tell you about too. So typically in a manufacturing environment, manufacturing costs or production costs are higher when you produce limited amounts, correct?
Production costs are higher when you produce limited amounts. I guess conceptually that makes sense. Chat, help me out.
So typically the more you produce, the price per unit drops.
Okay.
Would that be a correct statement?
Sure. Yes.
So that's the issue. That's the issue that you're describing here. You're saying, yeah, it's cheaper to import it from Canada. Well, why do you think that is?
Because it's cheaper.
Do you think it's cheaper? Do you think it's cheaper because
I do think
they have more producers of it, or do you think it's cheaper because it costs them less money to drill it out of the ground than it costs us to drill it out of the ground?
It's cheaper because of the conditions of our trade agreement. It is what it is. Like it is more efficient for oil companies to import Canadian crude oil and refine it in Texas refineries. Otherwise, why do you think they would be doing it? You think they're doing that just for the fuck of it?
So it goes into my earlier statements when I said a lot of what we do in our trade as the U.S. is to keep us as the global good guy. It's not necessarily because we couldn't do it better or cheaper. It's because we're subsidizing this other country. Now they owe their loyalty to us. Why do you think, from that perspective,
why do you think so many countries opened up their markets and started engaging in the global economy? Like after centuries of like protectionist economic policies that these like feudal lords would engage in, why do you think all these countries decided? What's that?
Because the big banks control the market, so they want to get money from those big banks. You know, the BlackRocks and them, that, you know, the banks that Obama chose to
you think that to
be the winners.
You think that like Nigeria, being a developing economy right now and becoming more and more prosperous every year, you think they're doing it to make like the big banks money, or do you think it's because it helps them be more prosperous and have access to cheaper goods and services?
It's one of those things where one is the other necessarily. Like it's the big bank. When you get money from the big banks, you're gonna make more money overall, right? So it's how that works.
You sound like, do you want to get rid of banks? Is that what you're doing?
Do I want to get rid of big banks?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I don't necessarily like big banks because that's the whole reason why we got off this gold standard and stuff like that.
Are you a communist? Are you a secret communist and maybe you don't even know it?
Am I a secret communist? No, man. I'm just a realist, like I said. I mean, the thing is, Hutch, you know, that's the thing about the MAGA movement is like we can actually think differently than other constituents under MAGA and still be under the same flag. We can think differently and still agree on the big things, right? I think that's the big problem that the Democratic Party's having, right? It's
I just think it's
you guys disagree on one thing and you're no longer a Democrat, right?
I mean, listen, I agree. There's way too many security tests in the left wing of this country. You're not wrong about that, but I mean, I do find it a little bit like, it's a little bit telling to me that at various points in this conversation, you acknowledged that Trump's current tariff policy is, you say, quote, not great. Another word for that could be bad. And And you seem to be like more or less fine with that. According to every opinion poll that we conducted, that these pollsters conducted after the election, the economy was by far the number one issue, top of mind for voters. People felt like they were more prosperous when Donald Trump was president, and they felt like they were less prosperous when Joe Biden was president, which is true. We did experience global inflation. That's true, which stretched people's paychecks further than what happened when Trump was president. And they hired, the American people essentially hired Donald Trump to come in and fix that problem and make it so they feel more prosperous again, make it so that they can afford more goods and services. But you're telling me that Trump's policy of blanket tariffs are not great because it causes too much of a shock to the economy, too many downsides to it. That seems kind of integral to like, how do we grade Trump so far? That seems like a big deal. That you're saying that what he's doing economically is not good.
Well, I will say I don't agree with everything he does economically, right? So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, President Trump so far, he's been a 10 out of 10 president. I mean, just the other day.
If you had to grade him on the economy, what would you give him?
I think to grade him on the economy, right? I mean, it's too early to grade him on the economy.
Why?
I mean, we don't even know, like, because there's so much shit going on from the past admin, right? Like prices of eggs are up, like what, over 100%, and he had nothing to do with that, right? You agree with that? You agree with us? Okay, why do you say that?
Because it happened when he was president.
Well, they were already up before he was president, so I don't know.
Well, listen, I'm using your reasoning.
I mean, I feel you. I feel you, but they were already up before he was president. So I mean, sure. those 100 million chickens were dead before he was president, right? So,
to me, I don't know. For me on the outside, it's like when I'm looking at the MAGA movement, it's like you guys pushed him so hard because you said he was going to come in and he was going to make it was going to be gangbusters. Everyone was going to be flush with cash. And then he comes in and he does these blanket tariffs, spooks the market. So now people's 401ks are suffering. It's totally unnecessary. It is directly his fault. The reason why the markets are tumbling right now, maybe not crashing, but tumbling right now.
They're definitely not crashing. Well, they'll pick up soon. I mean, that's the reason. The reason why I'm not worried about the market is because it's that's how the market is, right? So it crashes, it plummets for 2 days, and then you have a good month and it's up.
Well, we can look at the last month, and it is a steady decline.
Oh, for sure. I'm not gonna disagree with that. I mean, it's a graph, right? You can't disagree with what the graph says.
No, but do you disagree that he's directly responsible for these markets tumbling?
It's disagree with that because the markets are tumbling because of what he announced in tariffs,
right? And the tariffs, and once again, and the tariffs that you yourself say are not great policy.
So blanket tariffs, no, I don't agree that those are great policy. But tariffs in general, yes, they were 100% needed.
Well, okay, he's doing blanket tariffs.
Yeah. So I understand that.
Why can't I get you to just say this is not good? This is not why we hired Donald Trump.
I will say with Mexico, they're not blanket tariffs. Canada, they probably are.
Mexico, they are. Mexico's blanket tariffs. What are you talking about? Yeah, they are.
Mexico is not blanket tariffs. Anything in the USMCA is not tariffed.
He granted that exemption for 1 month.
Yep. And guess what? If Mexico lets our special ops in their country and lets us take down the cartels, they'll get more time. That's why he's doing these tariffs right now with Mexico.
So the tariffs are bad, but they're also good because they're helping us negotiate. Sending in the Delta Force to take on the.
I'm not arguing that that's why. I'm not arguing that that's why tariffs are good, but I'm saying the threat of tariffs are why that's going to happen. That's no, you don't want those. You actually don't want the tariffs implemented. Neither country does. But the thing is, USA is a lot stronger, bigger, more resilient economy than Mexico. So yeah, Mexico. I think the USA way worse than ours for that.
I think the USA has such a strong and resilient economy in no small part because we have such strong trading partners internationally. The big reason why we're so prosperous is because we have these big trade deals with with
you wanna know a bigger
Asia,
reason?
with the EU, and with our partners north and south of us here. These
You wanna know
trade
the bigger
agreements,
reason?
this global free trade is one of the reasons why we enjoy. Like, I can buy a 65-inch flat screen TV for like $500 in this country now. It used to be like $10,000 to get that. That happened
Well,
because of efficient market efficiencies. That happened because of trade agreements.
That happened because capitalism and the nature of engineering. Each generation, you get something that's twice as fast for half the size. That's
I want to okay, but I want to go back to that. Would you concede? I'm just trying to get you to get on board conceptually with free trade. Like, would you concede that certain countries are going to be better suited to produce certain goods better than other countries?
And I agree with that statement, Hutch.
Okay, you're so close, though.
You're not understanding what I'm saying.
No, but
you're not understanding what I'm saying.
Okay,
I'm saying that the United States, a lot of what we do import, we can make it cheaper and better ourselves.
Wouldn't we be doing that? Wouldn't we be doing that already?
No, we would not be doing that. No, we would not be because we're so worried about keeping some globalist agenda. That is why.
Okay, hold on. Wait. All right. If I understand your premise, you're saying that the United States over the last several decades, in these trade agreements that we've made with various countries and international partners and conglomerates of countries, you're saying that we've done that because we want to just like advance globalism and not because it's cheaper for us to import these goods? That's what you think?
I 100% know that.
No,
right?
but you already conceded a moment ago that certain countries can produce certain goods more efficiently, better than other countries, right?
Well, I'm saying things like when you're talking about like coffee and shit like that, right? I'm talking about different. So we're probably saying the same thing, but talking past each other here, right? Because I'm talking about
why are we trying to take $500 billion worth of like rare earth minerals from Ukraine? We can just produce that here, right?
We don't own those rare earth metals.
But he's trying to own them. Like, why do you think that is?
Well, for one, Ukraine, they owe us a lot of money anyways for this war that the Obama admin started.
Do we owe our NATO partners money when we invoked Article 5 after September 11th?
We don't own NATO shit because we pay for that defense every single year.
What do you mean? We're the only country that has invoked
year in, year out.
We're the only country that has invoked Article 5. So should we pay back every NATO partner that sent troops to the war?
Guess what we do? Guess what we do already, Hutch?
What do we do?
Guess we have a trade deficit with the EU. That's us paying them back, is that not? We have a trade deficit with them when they don't have natural resources to produce their own goods.
Do you think that it should be the goal of every trade agreement to have like perfect parity? Like, why are you saying it's a bad thing for the United States to have a trade deficit with Canada, which has less than 40 million people? There's more people that live in the state of California than live in Canada.
I'm not even specifically talking about Canada. I'm frustrated with the trade deficit with the EU because, I mean, historically, we all know, like, if we've all taken our history class, we all know why the British East India Company was expanded so far, right? Because the British, they don't have natural resources and they have to import them from other countries in order to survive. That is why I have a problem when we have a trade deficit with the EU, because they literally cannot survive on their own. So by nature, the EU should have a trade deficit or be neutral with anybody because they cannot survive on their own.
I feel like
that is why I care about the EU.
I feel like you just described through your history lesson the advantage of global free trade. Like the idea that England was at a disadvantage when it came to certain products and such, that they felt the need to, like, you know, expand their empire and take over like resources. Instead of, like, I prefer to live in the age of like free trade rather than conquest. Like the world has become a more, like, objectively speaking, the world has become a much more prosperous and peaceful world because of free trade, is my point. It's lifted
because of free trade.
Yes.
I don't know about.
Yes, that's exactly what happened.
I mean, I don't know if I agree if it's specifically because of free trade. I mean, there's a lot of things that have happened, right?
Like what?
Like for one, the United States, like with the CIA, you know what the CIA does. So I mean, they topple governments, right? And they fund revolutions in countries that don't necessarily agree with the American objective.
You think the reason why the world is much more prosperous now than it was before is because we like got rid of Mossadegh in Iran in 1979 or whatever?
Is because of globalism for the most part. Yeah, I mean that's kind of what happens.
What's another word for
all the
globalism?
economies essentially become one.
So it is because of free trade, right?
It is because of free. No, it's not because of free trade. Free trade was a product of that.
You just said it was because of globalism. Like, what do you think globalism is?
Well, but free trade is a product of globalism. It's not like free trade doesn't cause globalism.
Free trade is the fundamental like characteristic of globalism.
Yeah, it's a cause of globalism.
No, it's okay. All right. Listen, there's some other people in my chat. It was good catching up with you, Creed. I look forward to your replies and my mentions.
Of course, I'm there all the time, man. You know, I'm a lot of stuff I say. Don't take it too personally, you know. But
I don't. You're a good sport. You know, I appreciate our conversations.
Yeah, man. Nice talking to you.
I'm gonna fix you, but yeah, good talking to you. I'm gonna fix him.